all of your awesome Godzilla figures, Kokis has you covered with all of that. This includes Hiya Toys and now Monster Arts and other Godzilla lines. Another great thing, Kokis has free shipping to selected countries with great fast shipping. I've pre-ordered all of my figures from Kokis without any issue. It's a trustworthy website amongst the collectors who also recommend this great website. You can also get all your figures cheaper by using my discount code. Use code RubiGamingx to get 6% off on the entire website. This includes small, medium, big figures, literally anything. It doesn't have to be Godzilla related. Every single figure, by using my discount code, you obtain 6% off. So what are you waiting for? Help yourself out and help me in return by using my discount code on the entire website to get your fast shipping and great figures. It's highly recommended, and if your package gets lost for whatever reason, simply contact customer support and they should be able to help you right away without an issue. Very great website, trustworthy. Godzilla Evolved. It took a while because my package was sent to the wrong address. Anyways, here it is, the figure in hand. And before I get into my thoughts and give you, my true feelings about this figure, there's a lot of things going on with this figure currently after the newly announced upgraded Godzilla Evolved heat ray version. And the community is not happy, but I will always remain honest with my opinion on this figure, and let's get on to it with the articulation first of all. So the biggest features about this figure is some newly upgraded articulation around the elbow section on the arm. This allows the figure to have more free articulation and get it in more dynamic poses that you weren't able to do previously. On top of that, the famous articulated dorsal plate in the middle. Is it a gimmick or not? I will get onto that as well. Also, the knees have been slightly modified to give it that extra articulation when it comes to motion and posing the figure compared to any other previous Godzilla's figure. The tail has been completely upgraded as well. It has more sections to give it more articulation. So let's start off with the articulation first and the basics. So you can really get the arms to go 360 up and down, sort of. Mine is still stiff, but a tip that you can use is always use a hairdryer to make your figure more poseable. And this is what I'm talking about. The range on the elbow is a lot better compared to the other ones. And I'll do a comparison as to what I mean. So you can open and close it. Now for the next section, it's a little bit disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. It's actually disappointing, should I say. When it comes to the articulation on the head section, this is what you have. You can look up this much. Not really down at all. It's very limited. Side to side would be this much. It's, again, very, very limited. Very disappointing, should I say. And it also has this nasty gap. It's like, what is this, you know? It's really bad and it just falls off. Now, I want to get onto that later, why that happens. But for the neck, it's going to be very limited. You can look up a little bit better than Monster Arts, but not that much. Downwards, it's almost not even there. Side to side, it's there, but look at what happens. So it's very limited. It's all about knowing how to pose your figure, but when you do, it creates very bad gaps that shouldn't be there. When it comes to the back section, this is how much you get. You can move side to side. It's awful. Anyways, you get a little bit of motion going up and down, not too much. Now the infamous dorsal plate. What is the purpose of this? So the purpose of this is when you pose your figure crouching down. Typically, the original figures would have the dorsal plate in the middle. To close the gap between having that weird look, you can move the dorsal plate upwards to give it that more natural look. And this is exactly what you get with it. You can move it up and down, side to side, and really just move this as you would wish. But unfortunately, this figure cannot really look to the sides that good. It's almost not even there, if I'm being completely honest. When it comes to the leg section, now, it opens this much, backwards this much. You can move it in and out this much. Now the new system that I was talking about is just bending the section a lot better compared to the original one to allow Godzilla to be posed in a running position or doing other things. Section, this is what you can do with it. Again, it's nothing amazing. It's the typical articulation that we've seen with Hiya Toys, except for this section. Like I told you, you're able to get more free range out of it. Now the tail, this is where the interesting part happens. You can see more segments that were not present on the original and with the previous Godzillas. This means that the tail has more articulation, more segments, which allows it to have a more higher range of posing this figure dynamically, and it really almost matches Monster Arts when it comes to how many ball joints we have on the tail section. And the last piece, well, should I say the last pieces are more solid than, you know, cut off like we see at the beginning of the figure. And this is exactly what I'm assuming Hiya Toys means by adding more segments and upgrading the ball joints on the tail. The articulation is there. It's good enough, but there is room to definitely improve the tail, and I can definitely see that. Here's the motion that you get out of it. It's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely a lot better to any of the previous ones, that's for sure. And it's really nice, definitely really nice. When it comes to the paint application on this figure compared to the preview that we got from the official Hiya Toys channel, it's a lot better. And also the teeth are definitely a lot better, and the eyes, it's not what they were showing off. Figure definitely was a downgrade, and it wasn't really what the final product looks like. I'm happy to report that yes, in person the figure does look a lot better, but it's still not significantly up to par as you would expect from any other. Definitely not the best that we've seen from Hiya Toys. And just looking at the figure, the dorsal plates are extremely disappointing to look at, and the wash on the body could definitely use better improvements for sure. It's not the worst. Again, they definitely delivered a better figure when it comes to the looks of the, you know, actual Godzilla, the sharpness of the teeth, but still it is not perfect. And this is what I'm talking about. There's actually purple splash or paint on parts of the figure. Again, this could just be my figure, but you can definitely see parts of it right here. And it's not very noticeable. Now again, if you look at the teeth, they definitely look more sharp. They're not the same color that we saw where they look very smushed together. The eyes definitely have more definition to them. You can see the eyeballs are still there, very great. It's not the best, but it's still not the worst like the preview that we got. This is the other side, a little bit disappointing to look at, but still not the worst, definitely. And again, the eyes are definitely there. They definitely improve, but again, the teeth, they're in between, not the best, but not the worst. If you look at the paint job on the body, there is some details popping out that were not present there in the original. You can see they added like some brown type of, you know, desert dry brush around the figure, and it looks nice, but it's not really there for the full chest. There is some, you know, grays and browns, but it's not very visible like it is on this area, and I think that would have been a nice touch. But regardless, there is a lot of details on the figure. Unfortunately, one of the things that is also a disappointment for me would have to be the dorsal plates. They are extremely soft. They have lost a lot of details. I'm not sure if it has to do with the paint job. In person, it doesn't appear to be that way, but in the images that they've shown, it appeared to be that. You know, when you put too much paint on a figure, that it loses all the details. Well, in person, you can see that the details are definitely lost. There's barely any details on the dorsal plates, especially when you compare them to the 2019 or the pre-evolved version. It's definitely not there, and that's such a big letdown. And it makes sense why they are upgrading the dorsal plates to have more details and definition on them. With two pair of fists, which you can switch between the original to have them, you know, pose different, just punching Kong or his enemies. About the size, I've been seeing this all over the place, and a lot of people definitely like to lie about this and just cap about it. First of all, both of them are bent in their normal position. They're not fully straight, and you can definitely see that the original Godzilla is definitely taller than this one. This one is fully looking upwards at its maximum position with his knees a little bit bent, just like it is here. So both of them are equal. And you can definitely see they are not in the same height. And just putting them in their normal position, you can just see a different angle. And you can still see that the original one is slightly taller than the newer Godzilla Evolved. So yes, it is undersized. If we fully stand up Godzilla straight forward with his knees, legs, everything, well, this is the result that we get. They are approximately the same size now, and keep in mind, this one is still not fully straight. So a lot of people, what they like to do on the internet and for YouTube videos, they like to apply this little trick here to say that it's not true, that this Godzilla Evolved is perfectly fine, that there's no issues with the size. No, it is definitely undersized and also lightweight. Now look what happens when this one is fully straight. Yeah, it's back to the same situation. So this is something that you cannot deny. Godzilla Evolved is definitely undersized, and it's not in the correct scale. Definitely, no doubt about that. This is a test that I had to do just to clear that confusion between both figures. It's unfortunate because this one should have definitely been this size, but then again, the whole line is not accurate in terms of size, even Kong and Shimo. I'm assuming that later down the road, there's definitely going to be newer models that are properly fixed to their accurate sizes. Mark my words on that. This is the interesting part about the brand new articulation section on the knee. Notice how it's able to get into more dynamic poses more freely of range compared to the original. I have to literally hold this figure because it falls, and it's not able to achieve the same pose as Godzilla Evolved. You guys can see, I tried posing Burning Godzilla in the same pose. It's not really achieving the same look. And that's the beauty of this new segment compared to this one. so you get more free range to do more dynamic poses. On the tail, there's a night and day difference when it comes to the articulation on both figures. You can see that the original has longer segments, making it a little bit more difficult to pose than the brand new Godzilla Evolved, which has more segments on the tail. And that is what is allowing this figure to have that range on the tail compared to the original one. We have to move on to the other upgrade, which would have to be the elbow. So notice both of them. Notice how on the original it looks awkward. There's definitely a seam right here. You can see where the articulation meets, and it doesn't look natural. Sure, it's able to do it, but very difficult. Now on the Godzilla Evolved, the pose simply looks more natural. Look at that. If you notice, there's no longer those weird gaps. It looks natural, very great, able to do this pose without any issues. Now look at the original. This is what I'm talking about. Awkward, gap, natural, and it has more range than the original. This is what the upgrade is meant to do between both figures. Now my thoughts on this figure. Well, Godzilla Evolved definitely has improvements from the previous figures. It also lacks certain things that they should have learned from the past. What feels like a step forwards feels like 2 or 3 steps backwards, not learning from their mistakes what could have been applied to this figure. Take for example the neck section. The neck section suffers from the original issue that the 2019 had, where you got that weird gap in between the neck and very limited articulation and motion when it came to that. I don't understand why they decided to apply the same system when they had already clearly learned. It's as if they are trying to purposely sell you the problem to apply the solution with the new upcoming Godzilla Evolved heat ray, which is definitely something they mentioned, improving the articulation on this section, on the neck and the head. Also, the dorsal plates. You would expect that by this time, Hiya Toys is definitely not a noob company. They have experience at this time. Why is it that they lost so much details on the dorsal plates? And while the dorsal plate on the back with the articulation is pretty nice, it feels more like a gimmick. Why? Because the torso sections can't even bend side to side to actually apply those benefits. So the benefit is there, but they're not fully taking advantage out of it because of how limited this section is, which is a bummer. And again, I'm not sure why they are going back to issues that they were previously already fixed with other figures. It just seems very obvious that this figure was never ever meant to be the fully upgraded Godzilla Evolved that we were always meant to receive, but rather the original prototype with some upgrades applied, because they also talked about the tail. Again, while the tail is phenomenal, it's still not the best when you are trying to get certain poses. I'm going to remove the whole piece right here to explain something. So look, the sections, the cut sections on this figure is nice. They did a fantastic job. The issue is that they keep using this ball joint that is no good, that was definitely found on the original. What they have to do is divide this section into 2 different ball joints, or probably 3, right here in the middle. There has to be a different cut where this ball joint can bend. That way it gives the ball joint freedom for Godzilla to look down and up like this, like your finger would, work. This is what I'm talking about. This is the type of articulation that Godzilla Evolved is missing, and Hiya Toys definitely has to stop using this system and go for something more advanced when it comes to articulation. Because if you notice, there's barely any movement, and that explains why you aren't even getting any movement on the neck, which is extremely disappointing to say. Why you see both of them is because Godzilla Evolved is literally a shadow to what Godzilla 2019 is or was. Because if you look at the dorsal plates, while they do have nice details, the details are soft in this model. And then when you compare the upgraded Godzilla 2019, the details are more defined. So it doesn't make sense for them to learn from the mistakes and then apply it to this figure. And with years of experience, you would think they would not repeat that same mistake onto this figure, and they definitely did, and even worse than the original Godzilla 2019. There's barely any details to be found on the dorsal plates. This is very silly and very disappointing, to say the least, about Hiya Toys. It's getting to a point where it's feeling like they're purposely applying the problem. It feels like they're giving you the problem to then sell you the solution, which is becoming very frustrating at this point with Hiya Toys. It's just becoming ridiculous having to buy another figure after another figure because they're applying upgrades that should have definitely been on the original. There's no excuse for this to not have any of the upgrades that the newer Godzilla has. If anything, it should have just been a difference with the paint job and maybe accessories. To say the least, this figure is not the best out there, and I would definitely recommend you to save your money and pass on this figure. It's not worth it. If you really want the best Godzilla Evolved, wait for the upgraded version for sure. It's going to have everything that you ever wanted and more accessories. Going to be the definitive version, at least for now, because obviously, knowing Hiya Toys, they're going to release a different version with more things. And I've always said this to my subscribers: patience is key to everything. The longer you wait, you'll be rewarded for that towards the end. And we have seen that even with King Ghidorah. We got the special color version, and now we're getting a newly upgraded King Ghidorah 2019 with better articulation. And I'm also talking very honest about this figure. I'm able to do that because I'm not being sponsored by Hiya Toys or any other company. Everything was bought directly from me. I am with Kokis. Yes, you can use my discount code, but they do not give me the figures. If anything, I pay for my figures, just to make that clear. And there's a lot of reviewers out there that I've seen that are definitely sugarcoating this figure, calling it the best and saying that Hiya Toys has done a phenomenal job. And quite frankly, that is not the case for me, at least. I have over a decade of experience reviewing figures, and this definitely does not seem up to par as to what we were promised, of waiting just to receive this, which is a big disappointment, to say the least. Again, it is not the worst figure. It's definitely a good Godzilla Evolved and the cheaper version, comparing it to Monster Arts, but it's definitely not the best one and not the definitive version. And I would recommend anybody out there to definitely pass on this figure. Save your money, get yourself a Godzilla Evolved Heat Ray version from Hiya Toys. And if you are going to pick this up, maybe to customize the figure or because it is your job, you know, it's understandable. I get it. And it's up to you. It's your decision. I'm giving you my honest opinion, analyzing this figure with everything that I've told you, and I'm going to do other shots towards the end of the video so you guys can really get an idea of how this figure can pose compared to other figures out there. But definitely when it comes to reviewing figures, I will always be honest with my community out there, even if it seems like you know, hating on the company. It's not. It's called positive criticism and constructive criticism towards this figure to become even better. And it's very obvious that they always had this under the bag. A lot of people didn't even have this figure and they announced the other one. Very clear. This figure should definitely never have existed. That's my review for now. Hopefully you enjoy. Comment, like, and subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. This is RubiGamingx. I'm out.